Hello and a very warm welcome back to Widowed AF. You're here with me, I'm Rosie Moss, I'm your host and I'm always here. Joining me this week, I have Becky Shepherd. Now, Becky and I have spoken to each other on the good old Instagram and we really hit it off, didn't we? I felt like I'd made a friend almost. And so I'm delighted that you've come on today to talk about Paul and to tell your story. Even though I kind of know you, I feel like I know you, I don't know a huge amount about what happened to Paul. I do know that it happened abroad, which is going to, I imagine, have a lot more complications. And I do know it happened suddenly and that you've got two boys. So I think it's going to be an emotional one, but I think it's going to be really fascinating as well. So thank you for being brave and coming on.
Thank you for having me, Rosie. I'm absolutely delighted for us to be able to talk.
All right, Becky. Well, as is tradition on the podcast, I would love to know a little bit about you and Paul, how you met, what your life looked like. You know, just you can tell me in as much or as little detail as you want.
Okay, of course. Well, thank you firstly for having me on. I'm absolutely delighted for us to finally be able to talk. And for me, any opportunity to be able to talk about Paul is always a great opportunity.
It really is, isn't it?
It is, you know. Yeah. As much as I can talk about him, you know, it really does all of us so much good to keep him in our constant conversations is really important. So taking you back to the beginning, so 2002, I was fresh out of university in my first proper job, working as an assistant buyer. I was working in retail back then.
I wanted to be a buyer.
Yeah.
My dream job. I applied to the London College of Fashion, but they cancelled the course. So my life took a different path, but isn't that interesting?
Yeah. And honestly, I had 11 fabulous years working in retail. Really was such an exciting time. And was very fortunate. I spent, a lot of time abroad. And this was all around the time that I met Paul and in those sort of early to mid 20s. So I was 22, 23 when we met, and I was with some friends from work, and we had a night out in Birmingham's most famous indie nightclub, Snobs, which is just, it's just the homeland as far as we're all concerned. So we met as you did back in the 2000s when, we didn't have social media.
It was easy back then, wasn't it? You just met in a pub or Snobs.
Or Snobs, exactly. We met, we went out on a date a month later, couldn't really remember what each other looked like. It was a very hazy first night of meeting, but it was just instantaneous. It's funny actually, because Archie, my youngest son, said to me last night, we were watching Married at First Sight, and he said, how would you feel if it was Dad walking down the aisle? And I was like, perfect. I said, because, the first time I met your dad, I just knew. He was it. Yeah.
Same. I walked past Ben. I was going for an interview at a wood flooring company. I was at university. I was probably similar time to you, actually. And I walked in to go for this interview, and this man walked past me, and we did, that real cartoon head turn. And we didn't get together for quite a long time after that. But it's that I never really believed in love at first sight or even like lust at first sight. But when it happens, it's real, right?
Yeah.
You just know that somebody you can't be without.
Yeah, without a doubt. And so we had this fabulous first date. It was a double date actually with one of still very good friends, and we hit it off. But Paul was in the middle of doing his Part 2 architecture diploma, so we then didn't see each other for I don't know, maybe a month, something like that. So we spent this month on the phone, on the landline to each other, just talking for hours on end. I was living at home with my parents. He was living at home with his mum. And I guess we just kind of, built something quite solid from just talking over the phone, which was lovely. We then started dating. We'd meet up in Birmingham. Things were it was perfect. It was everything you wanted. So much so that we moved in together after about 9 months, something like that. Very quick. Rented this fabulous apartment in Moseley in Birmingham. Yeah, and then we just had maybe a couple of years there, and then we bought our first house together. So it all happened quite quickly, really. Within the first sort of couple of years, we were homeowners together, which was, it was everything both of us had ever really wanted. We'd both been very, very clear when we first met that we were both looking for, the dream, I suppose, to meet somebody, to settle down, to have children. Paul was less keen on getting married. I think, it wasn't something that was hugely important to him, but
he didn't get to wear a nice dress, so it's never as important for them, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, but I think he was the sort of person who wanted to make other people happy. He wanted to make me happy. For him, children was always his priority. So yeah, so we got married, which was wonderful, and we then moved back close to where my parents and my sister live. And that would have been our second home that we owned together, with the intention of starting a family. It was always, let's move closer to one set of parents for help, which was the best decision.
Very wise.
Yeah,
well, especially in light of how things went as well.
Exactly that. So Jake came along quite soon afterwards. Jake is now 15. So Jake came along quite soon afterwards, and we just settled into family life. I got a job. So retail was never going to work with a young family. Like I say, I used to spend plenty of time out of the country. I used to go away for 2 weeks at a time and leave Paul with a block of cheese and a loaf of bread because he couldn't cook at all.
Ready meals, he'll be fine.
Yeah, so it just wasn't something we were going to be able to do longer term. So I got a little job. We were kind of had that sort of perfect family setting. It was just everything, and we'd had, by this point, maybe we were together maybe 7 or 8 years. By the time Jake came along, we'd done our partying years. We spent every weekend. We were out with friends. Paul was in a band. So it was gigs, it was, clubs, it was, dinners out with friends, all of that. We've been really, really fortunate to enjoy all of that. So we got to a really great point where we started a young family, met all these fabulous friends where we live. We've got this amazing clique of like 10 families where we've all got kids of a similar age, and everyone was just you're in that kind of, not NCT but kind of young,
you were all going through it together.
All the dads were brilliant friends and all the mums were great friends, and actually to the degree that when Paul passed away, it was those dads that carried his coffin. They were the ones that carried him in. Yeah. Archie came along 4 years later, and he completed our family, really. Archie's now 11, and my boys are just their dad personified in such different ways.
I got 2 of those.
Yeah, and it's just, God, aren't genetics incredible? They're the luckiest human beings because they are their dad,
And they seem to get the best bits of both of you, I find. Yeah. I'm like, where's the, neurotic behaviour? Where's the answer? Why is this bypassed you? You've got the long legs and the confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. So those sort of formative years were so full, so fulfilling. Paul was, without a doubt, the most wonderful dad. He was adoring to all 3 of us. We were his world. He wasn't one of these parents who golfed at weekends and did his own thing. We were his hobby. Yeah. And as much as he would grumble about it, he just absolutely loved that. He loved it. He was a really successful architect. He was a keen drummer. He carried on drumming. And he was literally every weekend out in the garden playing football with the boys, doing bits and bobs around the house. We'd go on family bike rides, long walks. Every weekend was so full. I'm now so grateful that we didn't just let those early years just kind of go by in a flurry of fatigue and just trying to sort of get through. We really, really filled those years, which is, something I'm so grateful for.
It's a bit bittersweet though, isn't it, when you've got a partner, a father who is so hands-on with the children? Because let's be honest, we all know plenty of dads that are a bit shit. And whilst you can be so grateful, because Ben was like this, he works for himself, so he was around the kids a lot, and he'd be the one that would sort of say, get off the sofa, come on, we're going out, and would rally us. And I think that it's that bittersweet, because yes, they are so lucky, we are so lucky that we had him, but the loss is so much greater. If he'd been working up in the city, coming home at 9 o'clock at night, spending maybe an hour or two at weekends with them, they wouldn't have such an enormous present to miss.
Yeah, there wouldn't be such
I wouldn't change it, of course.
No, exactly. And I think, it's interesting because when Paul passed, one of the first things that so Archie was 8 when Paul died, and Jake was 12. And one of the first, and I think, one of the first things that Archie said to me, I'll never forget, was, well, I'm the most unlucky out of all of us because I only got 8 years with him. Jake got 12, you got over 20, Mum. And I remember saying to him, you're right. However, those 8 years that you did get were so incredible. They were so full, and lots and lots and lots of people don't get a day of that, and that I really, really hold on to that. And I hope that as the years go by and they come to terms with their loss, they can be so grateful for the years, albeit not long enough.
Yeah.
What they did have was really, really special.
Yeah, those are. I mean, Monty, my eldest, he's now 15, so he's the same age as Jake. He was 7 at the time. Hector, who's now 13, he was 5, and my daughter was only 6 months. So it was a similar conversation in our house. Daddy didn't even make it to my first birthday. So it's really difficult because they've all got you've got different children with different bits of grief. They've got different memories of Dad. It's trying to support them in the best way possible. It's a tough gig.
Yeah, and I don't know whether you find this, but the way that both of mine deal with it is so polar opposite. So Jake, my older son, he really feels his grief, and he really is able to vocalize that and communicate that. Yeah, which is wonderful, especially for a boy.
A 15-year-old boy as well.
Oh, yeah. Whereas with Archie, he likes to talk about memories with Paul, but it's very rare that he would say, I feel sad about Dad, or I really miss Dad. I can't really think of many times where he's actually said that. And I wonder whether that will come in time, or maybe just the innocence of youth protected him to a degree that actually he will continue to deal with it in a way of, I miss him, but I don't need to wear it as
within the widowed community, everybody grieves differently. There's lots and lots of parallels, and we all, we know we have to make choices and do the work and all these sorts of things. But I guess like adults, children will grieve differently. And my eldest, he was doing a poem at school, and he came home and he was very quiet. And teenager, I didn't think too much of it. But I don't know about you, but I find we text things that might be quite difficult. So I said, you okay? And he said, yeah, I'm all right. But there was a poem today about the loss of a father. And I thought, oh, bloody hell, don't they know? But I think actually he doesn't broadcast it anymore. It's something he keeps quite private. So perhaps the teacher didn't know. And then I Googled the poem and it made me cry. But I thought actually how healthy that he was able to, he realised the trigger, he was able to tell me what had happened. And I just thought, we worry so much about the damage to these children. But I know I can only speak from my own experience that I think my kids are more empathetic, kinder, more patient, more understanding. I think not that you'd wish this on them, but these incredible children that take something awful and become even better as a result of it. Like, wow, right?
Yeah, I really resonate with that. I find with both of mine that there are strengths in them that I wonder whether they would have had this not happened to them. And we talk a lot, don't we, about kids and, kids are so resilient. And we shouldn't automatically assume that kids are resilient just because they're kids.
And because they don't talk about it. And don't assume it's gone kind of thing, right?
Precisely that, exactly. I see real empathy with both my boys, and I see a strength in them both. But, the one thing that probably more than anything is the relationship that I have with my boys now is without a doubt not the relationship I probably would have had with them had Paul still
Really
been
close to them.
so close.
Same.
So close, yeah.
Same. Yeah. We go to concerts together. We talk about, he's way smarter than me, so he makes me feel quite stupid. But yeah, I'm really, really close to my kids, really close. We're a really tight unit. My daughter will break me, I think, before she turns 10, but that's a different...
Yeah.
That's just girls.
No, yeah, that is just, I think that is a girl thing. But, I think back to my relationship with Jake specifically, we were just, we're both inherently quite stubborn, and we would just lock horns all the time, and we both had to have the last word. And I think we both still have to have the last word. I think the level of empathy in there now, where we both kind of, without realizing, take a step back, and we haven't argued. It isn't a thing. There is no arguing in our home at all. Paul used to be like, guys, like, both of you're both in the wrong or you're both in the right, and there is none of that now. We just have such a strong relationship, and I know that my relationship with them, albeit it was always fabulous, will always be probably closer than it ever probably would have been.
I agree. And I think particularly when they see you go through something that is so awful, and they see you dust yourself off, you might trip back down a few times, but they see you get out of the pit. And I think, what better role model could we be for our kids than showing them that a terrible thing can happen, but it isn't going to change. It will change you, but it won't define you. And I think that's something I hold on to, because I don't want them going being like, well, it's not my fault, my dad died, or I can't do that, my dad died. And it's giving them some kind of equity and freedom, but also, actually, this is something that happened to you. What you do now is up to you.
Yeah, without a doubt. And we say this quite a lot, but we don't excuse ourselves by using our grief. It's a
You did in the early days, so didn't you?
I don't even know if we did that, to be honest. Now, when I look back now, I think I always sort of felt like I needed to show the boys that it was okay for us to grieve, but it wasn't going to own us.
I think that's it. Yes, it doesn't have to own you. That's a really nice way of putting it.
Yeah, without a doubt. So that's so that was where we were at. So fast forward a few years. A woman that I saw, I remember at school, and I wrote about this. I remember after Paul died saying to me, I looked at your Instagram account and I used to think you had everything. You had it all. You had the perfect life. Oh, and, in some ways that kind of broke me, because I'm like, you're so right. But what's to say that not? It did, it was, but I'm not going to allow that to mean that we can't still have
a really great life.
Really great life. Yeah. So that was our life. We were, living, absolutely living. And we'd got to a really sort of nice point where the boys were at an age where they were developing friendship relationships with both of us. And my boys just adored their dad. I adored their dad. He was without a doubt my soulmate. He was my person, and the absolute love of my life and the love of their lives. So we're in a great place, which was really special. And now when I look back, I thank my lucky stars that we had that.
Do you think at the time you were aware of it? Because I often say, we're always moaning about our lives, aren't we, as humans. And it was probably the week before Ben died. And I can remember speaking to my mum on the phone, and because, all of us go through turbulence, prior to meeting Ben and things. And I said, God, I never really thought that my life would turn out this perfect. And and you think, oh, how you idiot. But it's funny you said about your friend as well, because one of my friends who became closer to me after Ben died, but she said, oh, yeah, we used to see you pull in with your gorgeous husband and your beautiful baby. And I was like, yeah, it was quite good, wasn't it? But I'm really pleased I recognised it at the time, that I'm not looking back now and thinking, oh, why didn't I value what I had? Why didn't I appreciate it? And I really did.
Yes, I think so. I think it would be easy to not, but I think we always knew as a family God, we are lucky, aren't we? You know, we've got these beautiful children who are healthy and smart and, you know, good kids. And I've got this husband. I used to always say, oh, I'll never leave Paul because, you know, I can't get better than, you know, like joking. I can't do better. You know, I scored high. And in fact, I think I said to Archie last night, yeah, I was definitely punching when I met your dad, you know. And he felt exactly the same, you know, he felt exactly the same. So, yeah, I think we did all really appreciate what we had. Everything was just as it should be, you know, up until that point. So, you know, I can never look back and say, oh, I didn't appreciate what we had. Yeah, we definitely did. We were really, really lucky until 2023. Life was wonderful. We'd got into a rhythm of Jake was at secondary school. Paul was director for his architecture practice. Super busy, but you know, going well. We were doing things like we just had like a Eurovision party at our house with all our mates and their kids. That was kind of life for us, you know. House parties, all the kids together, you know, all of that. We were kind of getting into the rhythm of going to music festivals with the kids, you know, really introducing the kids into music. Paul was, just the coolest guy, and his musical tastes were absolutely elite. And actually, Jake now, inherently, like we talk about genetics, music for him is everything, just like
weird. Same with Monty. So weird. Yeah.
And it's so natural, you know, there's no force of you need to listen to your dad.
Yeah.
None of that at all. He'll teach me, he'll be like, oh, I was listening to such and such the other day, and I'm like, oh, I'm sure your dad liked that. And then you look in Paul's Spotify history,
there it is,
find it, and stuff like that. So we were getting into that kind of getting the kids into, you know, sort of music festivals and camping and all of that good stuff. And we'd gone to a festival not far from us. We'd had a fabulous weekend. Paul had gone to watch a couple of bands. We were with friends. This was the main thing. We spent all of our life with friends, which was ace. You know, like every weekend we'd camp with friends. We'd, you know, have friends around for, you know, drinks and takeaways, and the kids all were just like great pals, and all the dads would get together with their IPAs in the corner. You know, it was brilliant. Yeah, it was wonderful. So we'd done that. And then on the Monday, so we came back from this festival and did a really quick turnaround, and it was May half term, and we'd decided only a couple of months beforehand, let's go away, you know, let's and we'd got into a really lovely financial position where things were, you know, good, and we could afford to take an extra holiday here and there. It wasn't just summer holidays anymore, which was lovely. And the great thing about Paul was he was so not interested in money whatsoever. I remember phoning him at work and being like, can we go on holiday at May half term? And he was like, can we afford it? Yeah. He's like, yeah, go for it, Bex. That was just him all over. Just go for it. Yeah, do what you want. You know, just book it, do it. You know, he was so easy breezy, so laid back, so everyone's best friend, but not because he was in your face or loud, or he was just there, and everyone loved him for it. So so we went out to Turkey.
I think I was in Turkey in May 2023, you know.
Really? Wow. We were in Antalya.
I can't remember where we were.
Yeah.
My engagement ring from Ben in the sea there.
Really?
Yeah. I kind of tainted that holiday, but anyway, I digress. I was writing, I said, I'm sure I was in Turkey May half term 23.
I'm never going to Turkey again. We're never going to Turkey again. None of the family are going to Turkey again. No one's ever allowed to go to Turkey. Yeah, and Jake was 12 at this point, and he's just getting into those like preteen, you know, hormones, and he's like, oh, Dad, like this hotel's got a gym, you know, will you take me to the gym? Because obviously in the UK you have to be like 16 to go to a gym. Yeah. And again, Paul was so easy breezy and family focused. Yeah, go on then. yeah, why are we going to the gym? But yeah, go on, I'll take you to the gym, no problem, mate. So they kind of got into a process of every day they'd go and have like just half an hour and do really light cardio, really light weights. Yeah, well done, mate, on your 5 kg. It was it was like that sort of thing. Yeah, really cute, really cute. So we went on the Monday, and on the Thursday, so we kind of got into a routine. So on the Thursday, we woke up, it was sunny, it had been shit weather all week. And on the Thursday, it was super sunny, and we went and had a morning down at the beach, which was glorious. And then came back to the pool after lunch, and there was a foam party. So I've got lovely memories of Paul and I stood on the side of the pool, and just thousands of children in the pool in inflatables with foam. And then after that, it was about 3:00. Jake was like, "Oh, Dad, should we go to the gym?" Yeah, go on, mate, let's go to the gym.
I'm admiring Jake's commitment here. I'd have given up after day one.
Yeah. So off they went to the gym. Archie and I stayed around the pool, and I was kind of throwing dive sticks in the water for him. I'll be honest, I'm not a big pool fan.
I don't like to play. I don't want to play in the water. I want to read my book while they play in the water.
Thank you very much. I'll dip my toe in maybe once in the whole week. So I was throwing dive sticks in the pool to him. And we'd probably been there about 20 minutes, and my phone is always on silent, but something just made me turn around and pick my phone up for no actual reason, but I just turned around and picked my phone up. And as I picked it up, Jake is ringing me. Answer the phone, but it's not Jake. It was a woman speaking, and she said, "You need to come straight to the gym. Something has happened to your husband, and it doesn't look good."
Oh my!
So I.
What were you thinking in this moment?
I'm not sure I had any thoughts in that moment aside from, we just need to go.
Yeah.
We just need to go. So
I'd be thinking a piece of equipment has fallen or something like that, maybe.
So absolutely, within that next 5 minutes, and when we got there, the question was, has something dropped on him? Has he had an accident?
Yeah.
As opposed to a health issue. Yeah. So I pulled Archie out the water, no shoes, threw a towel around him, no bag, left everything behind us on the sunbeds. And I just said, "You need to run. We need to go. Something's happened. You need to run." And we just ran from the pool to the gym, which was like lots of typical hotel gyms, just a small amount of equipment, glass walled, kind of a weird reception area that wasn't really, just a couple of tables and chairs. And as we got there, the scene that was in front of us was Paul was on the floor, and there was a number of people around him doing CPR on him. Jake was stood in this kind of reception area, and there was a woman, 2 women, and maybe a man as well with him. Jake was screaming and was saying, "Help my dad, help my dad." I went to, Archie was obviously with me. I tried to kind of go to Paul, and they said, "Just move back. We're trying to work on him." And my dad had had a cardiac arrest 6 months prior. My dad was really, really fortunate to survive a cardiac arrest. My dad was gone for 8 minutes, but he was at a clay pigeon shooting competition with a load of army cadets. So the minute he went, boom, they were down on him, and they had a defibrillator. So all I remember in that moment was, "Where's the defibrillator? Where's the defibrillator?" Yeah. And I was screaming, "Where's the defibrillator? Where's the defibrillator?" No defibrillator in the hotel. There's a hotel doctor, and they're doing CPR. those sort of next few moments felt like an eternity. At some point, paramedics came rushing in. And I vividly remember thinking, they don't have a defibrillator. There's no defibrillator. So there was not one in the hotel. Equally, they didn't, you know, like in the UK, you bring it on a backpack, don't you? They didn't. So they just put him on this stretcher and raced him out. And there was a woman there. It wasn't the woman that called me, but there was a woman there, and she came to me, and both my boys are screaming and crying. And she just said to me, she said, "You don't know who I am. It doesn't matter who I am. But me and my family are going to help you. We're here on holiday and we're going to look after you. This is my husband. These are my children. Your boys can stay with them and I will take you to the hospital. I will be with you and I'll take you to the hospital."
Oh my goodness.
I mean, it's a whole other story. But yeah, so my boys met her kids and her husband, who were just lovely, lovely, lovely people. And we jumped into, because I didn't go in the ambulance. They went, you know, we jumped into like a hotel car and off we went to the hospital behind, not knowing what had happened. At this point, I knew it wasn't something had fallen on him. Jake said, I just remember Jake saying to me, we were doing bench press. And Dad had finished his third set of reps and had said to me, "Oh, mate, I'm just going to move over to this machine." No, sorry, I'm lying. Opposite way around. Jake had just finished his third set of reps. And Jake said, "Oh, Dad, I'm just going to move over to this machine." And Paul was like, yeah, no worries, mate. I'll just finish this last set of reps and I'll follow you on. He was literally, you know, like 2 meters away from him. And Jake said he turned around and Paul had managed to put the bar back up, so it wasn't a crushing incident. But he said that his dad he was on the bench, but his head had come off the bench and his mouth was open. So he just screamed, "Help my dad, somebody help my dad, something's happened to my dad." And there was a chap in there working out who thought that Paul maybe had fainted. And Jake tells me that he saw this guy, you know, throw water in Paul's face, which to this day, he, you know, is venomous about it, like water in my dad's face. And I was saying, you know, he was thinking that he just needed to revive him. Raised an alarm. And so we knew that it was something that wasn't like I say, a crushing incident or something like that. And then they got him to the floor and they started CPR on him. So at this point, I'm going to the hospital. I'm in
Did you go to an international hospital? Was it the local one?
The local hospital in Antalya, with this woman in the car with me, and the boys are back at the hotel with their family. I phoned my mum.
Of course.
Phoned my mum immediately. First thing I did, phone my mum. My mum was on holiday with my dad and my sister and my nephews in Sicily.
My mum and dad were away when Ben died as well. Like, what is it with parents?
No. Phoned my mum in the car and I said, "Something's happened to Paul. He's collapsed. I think he's died, Mum." And Mum said, No, Bex, no, Bex, no, hang on a minute. And she's shouting my sister, who's in the hotel room, Helen, come here. I said, "No, I think he's died, Mum. I feel it. I can feel it. I can feel he's died." And she's saying, no. Anyway, I'll call you when we get, you know, when I know more. And yeah, I knew it. I knew for whatever reason he'd died. We got to the hospital. They put me in a holding room. This woman I was with was 2 steps ahead of everything. She just...
What's her name?
Her name was Fiona. Yeah.
Thanks, Fiona, if you're listening.
Yeah. She was called Fiona. And she was very, very helpful in those next hours and days, you know. And they put me in a holding room and then they took me into like a guest, I don't know what you'd call it, like a
family room or something.
Family room, yeah. And they just said, "We're really sorry, your husband has died." And that was the moment that
The world fell apart.
yeah.
I'm so sorry.
It really did, Rosie. That was that
And
was
how can as you're talking, I mean I'm covered in goosebumps, which is standard. But also, how can that happen so quickly? How can he have spoken to your son and seconds, not even minutes, seconds later? How can the human body just fail like that? And from everything you've told me, he was fit, he was young, he was healthy, no heart condition. I mean, did he have something undiagnosed? No, nothing.
Nothing, exactly that. So he was 46. He had never smoked in his life. He was a runner. He'd just completed a 25-kilometer charity walk with work. Didn't really like to drink very much. It was always me that was like, I'm opening a bottle of wine, have a glass of wine. Come on, babe, have a glass of wine with me, super, super, super healthy man. No symptoms. There was never anything that would indicate a reason for him to go and see a doctor that might have led to something. So no, there was no lifestyle kind of reason for him to collapse. So it was at that moment just this can't be. This can't.
Denial.
Yeah, this can't happen to us. This of course my husband cannot possibly be dead because he was, alive and healthy and, in the sea and in the phone party, with his children only, a couple of hours ago.
What was it like trying to get medical information? Presumably there was some English spoken by the doctors and stuff, but there's going to be a barrier there, isn't there? And how did you find trying to get, I mean, it's hard enough with jargon in English, right?
Yeah, right. So I guess because it's a tourist destination in Antalya, actually everybody speaks pretty good
English.
Yeah, so actually from that perspective, it was very good. And obviously in the hotel, very, very, English speaking. So actually from that perspective, it was fine. They just said to me, I'm sorry, we couldn't, he's died. We couldn't save him. Would you like to see him? And that was kind of pretty much it, and took me into a room to see him.
No time to. Oh, I'm just thinking.
No, there was nothing, and they took me straight in to see him, and I'm so grateful for that.
Are you?
Oh my goodness, I'm so grateful for that because Rosie, I genuinely believe that. He was waiting, like he was waiting to see me. I got close to him and I kissed him lots, and I just told him a million times that I loved him and touched his skin, and I just think, it was him, it was fully him. And I just think he was waiting to see me, and then he could go.
What about the boys? Because they've been incredibly brave, these boys, haven't they? Because this terrible thing is happening in front of them. They've gone to another family who I'm sure are making them very welcoming. Brave.
And the boys had no idea. They didn't know for a second that their dad had died. I'm getting texts from Jake at the hospital saying, hope dad's doing really good, keep us updated, and this family that were looking after him, like I say, they were 2 steps ahead, and they were like, we're going to make sure that the boys are fed before we get back to the hotel, because once they know they're not going to eat, we're going to make sure that the boys are taken somewhere that they never have to go to again, a room in that hotel that they never have to go to again, because we don't want to be, and we want to make sure that we are always avoiding the gym area of the hotel. And they were really sort of thoughtful where that was concerned, and in preparing for what was without a doubt the worst moment of my life, telling them what are the things that you need to do before you tell the boys, because they need you 100% as soon as that. Who do you need to call? Who do you need to? I need to call Paul's mum. I need to call Paul's dad. I need to call my own parents.
That's a phone call.
I need to do that first before we tell the boys, okay, fine, well, you know what, we're going to take the boys and they're going to play a bit of football. We're going to make sure that they're nowhere in the reception when you first come back in, so that there's no chance of them seeing you whilst you do those important calls first. We're going to make sure that when we do tell the boys that they've got everything that they need to be able, and we will be on hand. We can stand back. We can be there should you need that sort of thing. So, and you're not in your home environment. You're not somewhere. You can't sit them down here and tell them we're in a strange country in a random office. So I brought them in, and they don't know that their dad's dead. They don't know that, and
you've got to shatter their world.
Their world, precisely that. And I sat them down, and they sat in front of me, and I got down on the floor in front of both of them, and I said to them, your dad has passed away. Your dad has died. And the first thing that Jake said to me was, everything's going to change.
Yeah.
And that was a pivotal moment for me. That was the moment when I realised I had to step up, and I had to ensure that, apart from the obvious, apart from their deep, deep, deep loss, nothing else changes. And I promised it to him. I promised it to them both in that moment. I said to them both in that moment, I promise you now, I will do everything I can to ensure that nothing else changes, that we do everything that we did before, and you have everything that you had before, apart from the one thing that I can't.
No. And it's awful, isn't it? You're looking into these faces, and the only thing they want from you is the one thing that you cannot give them.
And to this day, and that's it today, even today, the one thing that they want, the one thing that we all want, I can't make that, happen. But that was the promise, and we've held on to that for 2.5 years.
Good for you, because it's really, really tough, and having to step up immediately. And again, you're not at home, because I got this earth-shattering news, but I was in my home. I was able to have my friends come to me. My mum and dad came back from Cuba as quickly as they could. You have now got to literally step up. You've got to figure out how you're going to get him home, how you're going to get those boys home. I presume there's flights to book. I mean, how do you get a body home?
It's wild. It's wild. It was a wild experience. And so, like I said before, my mum and sister were in Sicily. They booked flights immediately from Sicily to go to Istanbul, because you can't go direct from Sicily to many places. Sicily to Istanbul, Istanbul to Antalya the following morning. They're leaving my sister's 3 boys with their pops, my dad, who then has to bring them back to the UK, and my mum and sisters, all their luggage. They literally just shoved a few things in a backpack and get this connecting flight and get to Antalya within 24 hours of Paul dying. My mum says, I just vividly remember running through Istanbul airport, and my mum must have been at that point, I think, she'd hate me for saying this, 74, 75 at the time, just running through Istanbul airport to get.
You never knew you had, right?
To get this connecting flight, and they.
Like you're trying to protect your babies, she's coming to protect her baby.
Has always been the thing, as deep as my mum and dad's loss is, and they adored Paul. They adored him. They are also grieving for their daughter, who will be forever changed, and worse off.
Grandchildren, the grandchildren. It's I can remember my dad saying, my parents are similar age, and he just kept saying, I would take his place if I could. It should have been me. That's the natural. And I was like, no, don't you say that, Dad. I need you. But that I also think that the love that my parents poured into me, they have done all my life, and particularly at this terrible time, gave me enough love to give to the children. Do you know what I mean? It's like they kept me topped up enough that I could top the children up. But I think feeling like you've got support, and I know lots of people don't have that kind of support, and I can't imagine how you do it.
Yeah, we feel unbelievably lucky to have what we have around us.
Yeah.
We do, from that point of, my immediate family just needing to get there. We just need to get there, to those next 48 hours of my sister just taking the reins. My sister's 3 years older than me, and she's always been my best friend. But in that moment, she just became this powerhouse, and she just took charge of everything when I was at my absolute weakest, lowest, least capable. She took it all on. So, she was the one who was liaising with, the mortuary. She was the one that was liaising with the travel insurance. How do we
travel insurance?
How do we repatriate someone? She was the one that was dealing with the right. So how soon do we do the post-mortem, so we can then start making arrangements to have Paul repatriated? She was the one dealing with all of that. She literally took it all on, and she's just, I'll spend the rest of my life indebted to her.
Really, what a gift. Because my dad did a lot of phone calls for me, that having to ring round all, your life insurance, your mortgage company, trying to get everything, and you haven't got the mental capacity to do that. Widow brain is a thing, right?
Yeah, and organising a funeral, when you're least capable, and it's the most important thing in the world that you get this right, and Paul and I had never talked about death and whether he wanted to be cremated or buried, or what's the music that you want, or what would be the things that you would want us to talk. She was amazing. No, you wouldn't. So even when we got to that stage, she was, every day it was just one thing, Bex, just one thing today. Pick a piece of music. That's all we need to do today. Let's just think one thing at a time. So she was from the off. And my mom was there with, just all she could think about was her daughter and her two grandsons, and what it meant to them, and what she needed to do, what was the part that she played. And all she needed to do was be my mom and cook dinner and make sure that we were, getting some sleep. And I remember that first day we got back from Turkey, and she slept here. And I remember saying to her, you don't need to sleep. Honestly, Mum, it's fine. No. I'm staying. And she stayed that first night. And so we were there. So he passed on Thursday. And then by the Sunday, we'd done all the paperwork to enable us to be able to start thinking about coming home.
I bet you just wanted to get back, didn't you?
It was weird, because all my mum wanted was, we need to get Bex home. We need to get Bex home. And actually, I was fucking dreading it.
Because it became real, I guess.
Like, the last thing I wanted to do was come back to this house.
Because you can sort of pretend that you're almost in like a suspended reality, aren't you? Living in a hotel, it's completely different.
Without a doubt. So we got on a flight back with my mum, my sister. I spent the flight sat next to my sister, scrolling through Paul's phone, just reading old messages with his friends. He was just so gloriously fun and silly and innocent and just lovely. And we just sat and cried and laughed the whole way home. We were like, oh my God, look at this message that he sent to the lads from the band. And he was just one of life's very, very best. And so we spent the flight, doing that, and sort of steeled myself to come back to the house. And I think the boys went to my sister's house immediately from the airport, and I came here with my mum or sister, I can't really remember now. And I remember absolutely dreading it. And I remember walking in the front door, and it was like, okay, this is good.
Oh,
Yeah.
it literally felt like coming home.
He was here, Rosie. He was here. I walked in the front door and I was like, oh, he made it home before us.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, he did. He made it home for us. And the thing that's really important about this home is Paul built this house for us. You know, he, as an architect, we bought this house as a rundown bungalow. He did all the plans for it. Every wall, every architrave, every skirting has
Paul's touch on it, kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So walking back in actually was a massive comfort, and you know, it felt like he'd made it home before us. So actually, it was really comforting in the end to get home. And this is our solace. This is our safe space. This is legacy. You know, we talk a lot about legacy in our family, and this really is Paul, one of Paul's many legacies. This home, you know, that his children and his wife will always have comfort in. Will always be in this home, and it really is.
That is a legacy. He's left a roof over your heads. I mean, so many widows don't have that because they either there's no life insurance or they cannot afford to keep the mortgage payments. And actually, I really get what you mean about that sanctuary of just shutting your front door and it's just, okay, right, we can breathe now.
It feels, you know, as hard as it was in those early days, it was comforting. And as actually the months and years have rolled by, it feels even more so. And in fact, the other week I remember saying to the lads, "Oh, lads, like when I'm no longer here, this will be all yours, and you know, hopefully one of you will buy it off the other, and you'll keep it in the family." And they were like, "Nah, we're just going to sell it, Mum. We're just going to
sell it and go around the world, Mum."
Yeah. So this house is really, really special for that pure reason that this is Paul's. You know,
yeah, that is special.
Really,
just going to go back a bit because I wrote a couple of questions down. One was, what was the response from the hotel and the other guests like? Because did they kind of want to cover it up, or were they really helpful? I'm just curious.
Yeah, mixed. So they were really helpful. I'm not going to kind of badmouth them as a hotel. I think part of me is angry that they didn't have a defibrillator. Why haven't you got a defibrillator?
Becky?
Yeah, I don't think it is. I don't think it's a legality. They couldn't have done enough for us whilst we were there. They accommodated my mum and sister. You know, they were like, "Yeah, we've just booked a room. You're in. Just come." You know, they fed us all. They tried to do everything that they could within their power. And actually, on the 1 year anniversary of Paul's death, I contacted the hotel and I just said, "I don't know if you remember me, but my husband died a year ago and it's the 1 year anniversary. And I just wonder whether maybe you could like put a bunch of flowers, you know, on reception or something. Just it would kind of bring me a little bit of comfort." And they were just so lovely about it. "Yeah, of course we will." And they sent me photos and videos of it. However, it wasn't quite what I was expecting. I was sort of hoping for like a bunch of flowers on reception. Rosie, they put.
I know where this is going, I think.
They put a vase of flowers on the bench press in the gym.
Oh, I mean, they tried.
we were away when it, on the anniversary. We've tried to kind of go away every year, and I'm just sat there on a sun lounger, crying and laughing in equal measure, like going, "Oh my God, there's a bunch of flowers on the bench press," and my sister's looking at it and she's going, "It's not even the right bench press, Bex. That's not the right bench press."
Can you imagine coming to use the gym that day?
This movie, yeah. They were lovely. They did try their very hardest to kind of accommodate us as much as possible. They obviously must have been bricking themselves for some kind of repercussion, investigation, that it was a natural death.
Tragic accident. Yeah.
It was a tragic incident, and it couldn't be helped. And the one thing that I say all the time is, if this was always going to happen, if Paul was going to die of cardiovascular disease, which is ultimately what he died from. I'm glad that he was happy. He'd spent a day on the beach. He was with his absolute beloved son. He was relaxed. He'd had, things were good with work. It could have happened anywhere, Rosie. He could have
Driving.
been
could have taken out family.
Yeah, he could have been driving all of us. He could have been running on his own. He could have been on the train going into work or on the way home from work. There's some small comfort in knowing that he was in a good place, in a good place when it happened. So the hotel were great. They were lovely. However, Turkish postmortems, not so great. I think 15 months it took for it to come. Yeah, so that was hell for a long time.
So was he out there the whole time?
No. So no, we were really, really lucky. Paul was repatriated back to the UK within a week. Yeah, so we came back to the UK on the Sunday. He was repatriated, I think, on the Friday.
Can I just ask you something? Just because, again, sorry, I'm being nosy. I keep interrupting you. I've got so many questions. I'm like an eager child. When somebody is repatriated, do they come back on a normal aeroplane? And could you meet him?
Like Rosie, like not in a...
Oh, we shouldn't. Look, we're trying to talk about something very sad and serious, and instead we're...
Believe me, dark humour dominates our entire existence.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So they do. They come on a you call it like a commercial flight, a normal commercial flight, and they have to do a level of embalming because obviously they're like out of refrigeration at that stage. So there has to be like partial embalming for them to be able to transit from one place to another. And I guess they go in the luggage area.
It's not my bag.
Doesn't come out on the conveyor belt. Sorry. Imagine. I know, it's awful. They do. They come back on a commercial flight, as far as I'm aware. And so Paul flew back into Heathrow, and then have you ever seen these like private taxis? It's like a black, and then they brought they bring them up to the funeral directors there, where they can do all the hygienics and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's really strange. Like you could flight radar that shit. Like you could be like tracking him. Yeah. It's it's really crazy, really horrendous. Yeah, really, really strange, and just desperate to kind of get him home. That was the big aim. We need to get Paul home.
Did you struggle leaving him behind?
Yeah, without a doubt. Can you imagine flying out on holiday, 4 of you, and then there's only 3 of you on the plane back? Awful. Yeah, that's really triggering. And although we were with family, with my mum and sister coming back, going back to the car at the airport parking, then drive back,
and just having his things in the car,
and packing up the case in the hotel room, shoving everything, just chucking it all into the case, and having a bag of, he had a Garmin watch when he died that he was wearing, and his phone and his wallet and his passport. So, and they clipped the passport, and the passport came back with Paul. So, and then they give you the passport. Passport has to travel with him, from what I remember. But it doesn't look like a passport anymore because it's got all this paperwork clipped in it and corners cut, and that is weird. And coming back and having to empty the case and do your holiday washing.
And there's his pants.
And I remember they gave me at the hospital, they gave me his clothes that he died in. And he'd been in it, and he was running clothes, and he'd been in a gym. And I remember it was just in a bag, and it was all starting to go fusty, and because he was sweaty, in a hot country, and he'd sweated in it, and his trainers. And I remember it was all started going a bit like, I remember getting it out like about a week later and was like, oh shit, this is gross. and having to wash it as much as I didn't want to. I wanted to, you want to preserve, don't you? You want to preserve those memories. But I was like, I can't, it's going moldy from sweat. And so having that stuff is weird. However, we didn't need to worry about the kind of stuff that we wanted to hold on to. Like, we didn't need to worry about the sweaty gym clothes, because I had enough like little bits of memorabilia that we laugh about now. But before we went away, Paul had said to me, "Oh, Bex, would you do you mind just like waxing my back, like shaving my back before we go on holiday?" "Yeah, no problem, babe, no problem." We got back from Turkey, and unbeknownst to me, he'd not flushed all his back hair down the toilet. He'd put it in my waste paper bin under my dressing table. So we got back from Turkey, and I go upstairs and I'm sobbing, and and I'm like, "Oh my God, there's Paul's back hair in the bin. I can't get rid of this. I need to put it in a bag."
Stuff it into, I've had toys made for my kids from Ben's clothes. You just put it in as a stuffing.
I'm just crying. I'm like, I can't get rid of your disgusting back hair. Let's keep it. Yeah. So, so that's all really strange. The whole kind of repatriation piece, and following up with the British Embassy in Antalya, and you're constantly for weeks in contact with the British Embassy, trying to get information on progress of postmortems, and finalising all of the death certificate. So the death certificate comes from Turkey. When his postmortem came through eventually after over a year, it was in Turkish. Oh. It was in Turkish. The coroner, the UK coroner, Staffordshire coroners, cannot give you a translated version. They have to give you the Turkish.
The original.
Yeah, the original. So you have to go on Google Translate and translate.
Thank God for Google Translate, eh?
I mean, thank God for it. But equally, I mean, some of the stuff they translate so literally, you're like, that can't be right.
Bit harsh.
Yeah.
Were you able then? So was he legally declared dead at the point of return, or did you have to wait for the coroner report?
So he was classed as having had a natural death in Turkey, and a death certificate to support that, so that he was able to then come back to the UK. They wouldn't have let him out of the country if they hadn't declared his death, and it having been a natural death. They wouldn't have let him out of the country. We were really, really lucky to get him back as quickly as we did. I've known of other families out there for a month, 2 months, trying to repatriate their loved one. And the fact that we got Paul home within a week meant that I was able to see him again once we were back here in the UK.
Good boys. No, I don't think mine would have done.
No. I never gave them the opportunity, Rosie. I don't know about you, but
Ben's not been found, so it kind of didn't come up on the radar. And now, if he were to be found, it would be too traumatic for any of us to see him. So none of us. I said at the time, actually, if he's found, well, I have to identify his body, and they said no, we don't do that. But I know some people whose children have asked to. I know some people whose children are adamant they don't want to. And I think sometimes when you are the parent, and they were little, they were only what, 8
and 12.
Yeah. So sometimes you have to be mum, and you have to say, actually, I'm going to make this decision for you. Some people do it around funerals. Mine did come to Ben's funeral because of the no body, because I think we needed that clarity, all of us. But you have to sometimes make the choice.
Yeah, you do, absolutely. And Jake did say, well, can I see him? And I said, absolutely not, because he's not there anymore, darling. He's not there.
That is the last memory of him, do you?
He wasn't there. When I saw him in the UK, when I went to see him, I thought I would want to go for as many days as I could. Yeah. I saw him once for 15, 20 minutes. And he was gone. He wasn't there anymore. And it reaffirmed everything to me around, I'm not a religious person at all. But it reaffirmed everything to me, that everything that somebody is entirely everything that's inside of them. It's their personality, it's their smile, it's their, their values, their morals. all of that is what makes a person, the physical.
The shell that we walk around in.
It's he wasn't there. He was absolutely gone. So I'm glad that I never even for a second considered letting the boys go and see him. His obviously his parents did, his sister did, my mum and dad did, my sister did. Lots of people wanted to go and see him, but definitely not the children. And I'll never regret that decision.
No. What about funeral? Did they go to the funeral?
They did. They were a really key part of the funeral. It was really, really important that the boys were fully involved in every aspect of it. And it took a while, actually. We didn't have the funeral for maybe like 6-7 weeks. It took a bit of time to kind of get it together, but it was beautiful. And I'm so proud of all of us. Like, looking back, we hit everything that we needed to do. We had, some beautiful readings written by friends and family. We had Paul's band play.
That's nice.
Yeah, which was wonderful. We had our first dance, played.
I had the song I Walk Down the Aisle too. Yeah.
And then there was a point in it where you're saying your goodbye. There's a point where you go and say your goodbye. And I thought it was really important that the boys were involved in that. So the piece of music we had for that was an acoustic version of Foo Fighters' My Hero, which is why I have Kudos My Hero tattooed onto my wrist. The boys went up and collected Paul's sunglasses and drumsticks from the coffin at that point, which was so brave of them. But it was a moment of handing over to them. It was a real moment of handing over, and I'm so proud of them. They did an amazing job. And that really was Paul handing over that baton to the boys, without a doubt. My son Jake now is an incredible drummer. He's an incredible drummer.
Hex has just started lessons. He's really taken to it. It's brilliant. He loves it.
It's amazing, and for their mental health. But he is so talented, like his dad. So that moment, him taking his dad's drumsticks, was just really powerful. And then the other thing was, I wanted them to pick a song that when we leave the ceremony, that really made them think of their dad. And I said to them, it can be anything, it doesn't need to be sad, it doesn't need to be emotional, it doesn't need to be funeral like. And so it was really inappropriate. They picked Ice Cube, It Was a Good Day. Now, the lyrics to Ice Cube, It Was a Good Day. So Paul was really into all his sort of 90s R&B, rap, hip hop. He was massively into his hip hop. I mean, the lyrics to the song are about how Ice Cube had a good day. He was picking up hoes, and he was,
the granny's at the back.
He goes to shoot some hoops, but it was just a song that we have memories in our kitchen of the boys rapping with their dad on a Friday night, and it was just perfect. And so they picked that song, and it made everybody laugh at the funeral. They were like,
it's so important to do what you want and what your family, and if there's children involved, what they want, because it's like anything. We don't have to conform to what everybody else does. You don't have to have My Way played at the end of the funeral. You can have Ice Cube if you want, right?
Exactly that, yeah. So they were a really, really big part of the funeral, and as unbelievably hard as it was for them to be part of that, there was moments where I really thought Jake especially was going to run out. He wasn't going to be able to. They got through it. They got through it. They were amazing. And, within a few hours at the celebration afterwards, they were playing football, brilliant.
Crazy,
have some chicken dippers and go and play football. That's what you should be doing, your kids.
Yeah, you're right. And they are, so at that age, they can do that. They can have these enormous emotional outpourings, and then they could go and kick a football around. My Monty was, bless his little heart, he was probably just 8 by the time the funeral happened, and he wrote a letter and read it to his dad. We stood together, and I held my baby, and my Hector at the time, he really struggled when Ben died. He's autistic and he just could not cope with it at all. And he was present, and he'd done a picture which I held up because I wanted them to have had, they were too little really to have much control over what happened, but it was important to me that we stood together as a family.
Yes.
And faced it,
Yes, so important. And even, at an age where they won't have any recollection of that, so important that in years to come they'll be able to reflect back and go, wow, we stood together.
Yeah, we did that.
We showed strength. And that's been our story ever since, really. And I'm talking about the three of us, but then equally, our wider family circle with my mum and dad and my sister, and then our friends around us. Everybody just, gosh, it's like everyone just came together in this sort of sense of unity, and was so lucky to have around us the people that we do. I've got, the dads will come and help with the garden, and my mum now makes us go, she doesn't make us, my mum invites us for Sunday dinner every Sunday. She's like, you need something good in your Bex.
Oh, I'd like a Sunday dinner every Sunday.
Everyone leans into their strengths,
Yeah.
My sister's amazing emotional support. I've got my girls there, for Friday morning coffee. My job, my work are wonderful. And if you could have sort of a textbook on how to deal with a bereaved colleague, they were completely wonderful. And going back into work was, a gradual thing, and they couldn't have done more. So we've been really lucky where that's concerned. Yeah.
It's interesting as well, isn't it, that we can, even having been through this enormous life-altering tragedy, you're self-aware enough to go, actually, I'm still lucky. And I think that's wonderful. And I think that's probably what keeps that hope and that beautiful smile that you've got there, because it's very easy to fall into that, woe is me, the world is against me, everything is awful, my life will be shit from now onwards. And who would blame us, right? And I'm sure there's been a bit of that. There certainly has for me over the years. But ultimately, it's a choice. It is a choice, this bit.
It really is a choice. And I remember joining a couple of widow groups after Paul died, and just being like, you are not my people.
No.
We've got nothing in common apart from the fact that you've got a dead spouse.
Yes. And that's the thing, isn't it? Just because you're a widow, it doesn't mean that you're going to get on with all other widows because they're widow. And that's how this podcast came to be, because I wanted something that was a bit sweary and rude, and that we could laugh about the thought of a coffin coming round on the luggage claim. I don't think there's many podcasts on grief that you could do that. And so that's why and I guess that's why we've connected, because you feel that, yes, I've changed beyond all recognition, but that, that dark humour, that grit, that's all still in there. It was there before.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's not lots of people that, my life is rich in terms of the people that I have around me. So I can be selective now with who I allow in and out of my life. And widowhood has showed me that I don't need to be friends with everybody just because you've lost a spouse. I resonate with you, Rosie, so much. I just feel like we could be,
There are so many parallels. I keep wanting to interrupt and be like, oh, me too, throughout this whole thing.
A couple of other girls, Rachel, who runs Love Lost Disco Balls.
Oh, I love her. I've got her on soon.
Yeah, Rachel's amazing. She's become a really close friend. And I just think it's just taught me that we can move this forward with the right people around us. And like you said before about being lucky, I do feel so lucky. I am so grateful for everything that I have. I'm so grateful that I had 22 years with this remarkable, beautiful human being, someone who really made me the person that I needed to be able to cope with his death.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah,
he did. He gave me everything that I needed. He gave me the confidence, the independence, the strength, the love, that when this day did happen, actually, it's kind of because of him that I'm able to be able to thrive and move forward.
and all that groundwork that you put in together with the kids, you know, the reason they're awesome kids is a joint effort. I mean, I think we can take more credit now because we're doing it on our own. But up until that point, that the input that they had from their father, that helped shape them. We know how much it impacts the formative years.
Without a doubt. Yeah, those first 8 years, they say, are the most important. And I'll be forever grateful that they got that. You know, they did. Yeah. It wasn't long enough, but what they did get was fabulous. Yeah, really, really important.
Becky, I'm going to have to. I want to talk to you for longer. But I have a call with the Telegraph. So
look at you.
I know. They want to speak to me about my podcast nomination.
So honestly, genuinely, I'm so proud of you. I'm so chuffed for you. It's so exciting. It's such exciting.
Next week,
when I started following you, which was probably only in the first few months, actually, after Paul died, first year certainly, I just remember feeling like this woman gets it. She fucking gets it. And so to see where you're getting to now with it, I'm just delighted, mate. Genuinely. Chuffed to bits.
And I've definitely got to do another book, because every time I speak to somebody else, I'm like, that would be great in the book. That'd be great. Oh, look, she talked about denial. That'd be great. But I mean, I haven't said publicly, but by the time this goes out, it probably will be. My publisher has gone into administration. So my book will not come out. But I'm looking for a new agent at the moment. So I'll fuck up. But anyway, I digress. Yes, I do need to
go and prep for your interview with the Telegraph, because that is rather fabulous,
especially if there's a photo shoot involved. I want a window machine. Oh God, I'll maybe be able to lie about my dress size, won't I?
You don't need to. We're body positive girlies.
We are. That's correct. Well, Becky, it's been genuinely has been a pleasure. I really want to meet up with you in person. I think we'd have the best time. Your story is incredible. I've not had a story like this on before. I was captivated. I still have more questions I want to know, and you know, perhaps there's a chatty episode we could do together in the future, because I think we could bring something really special. If you have been listening out there and you've got questions, you want to talk to us, you can message me. I can pass on messages to Becky as well. So please, you know, do reach out. That's what we're here for. But yeah, thank you so much, Becky. It's been a real pleasure.
It's been an absolute pleasure myself too.
You take care of you and those gorgeous boys.
I will. And it's been lovely talking to you, Rosie. It really
same. I don't want to go. Anyway, we'll take care for now. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. If you found this episode helpful, hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you think someone else may benefit from this, please do share. We'd also really appreciate a quick review. It helps more people find the show. Thank you again, and see you next time on Widowed AF.